Greetings and welcome to Meet a CHM Family Member. My name is Cory MacDonald. I am the Patient Engagement Director for the Choroideremia Research Foundation. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Biogen, Santen, Spark Therapeutics, and Genentech. And with me tonight is a very special guest. Like myself, he has served on the board of directors of the CRF, has also been our president. Matter of fact, we're tied for the longest tenure as president. Dr. Chris Moen, how are you tonight, Chris?
Doing well, Cory. It's good to see you again. It's been a long time.
It's been too long. This darn COVID with having to cancel conferences is killing me, man.
Yeah,
I live for those things. Yeah, well, that's all right. So Chris, we'll get into a little bit of a background with you. And you're from Delaware and you grew up in Pennsylvania. And I've always been fascinated by the fact that here is a CHMer who turned around and became a doctor. Could you go into that a little bit? How did that whole process work? Was it CHM that caused you to think about medicine, or was it the other way around? Or
yeah, it's a great question, Cory. And CHM is a challenge in so many other things in your life, but it really did put me on a path towards my career and becoming a physician. So I was always interested in science, as a young man and a teenager. Alongside of that, my parents got involved with what at the time was the local chapter of the RP Foundation as advocates. During that process, we tried to stimulate more research, and in particular, put together a family meeting of about 30 members of my extended family to meet with scientists at the University of Pennsylvania, hear a bit about the disease and potential research opportunities, and to source the, potentially blood samples from them so that they could do more genetic research. And so at that meeting, I was 15, 16 years old, just kind of wide-eyed teenager. And I got the chance to meet Jean Bennett, and she invited me to work in her laboratory for the summertime and actually work on the blood samples from my family. And I was floored. It was unbelievable. Of course, I said yes. Like, how could you turn that down? And it really drove me into, a career in science and into a career of medicine. I've always wanted to sort of give back and to help people as part of my life. It's been something I was always interested in, even as a young man, and to be able to do that and treat patients just sort of became an interest of mine. So I thought I wanted to be a genetic researcher, and then I thought I wanted to be an ophthalmologist. And where I ended up was in emergency medicine, working in the emergency departments here in Delaware for several years until my vision got the best of me. So it's a very different kind of experience, I think, for most people with CHM. It has taken that some from me over time as my vision deteriorated, but it's really kind of a privilege to be able to serve and to take care of patients for so many years.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, that's just one of those, you have people that are, I call them helpers, and you're one of those. And I think it was fantastic you're able to direct that way. But I always thought emergency medicine, dude, there's like so many people running all over the place. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's organized chaos, and you have to learn how to manage the chaos, right? So for me, there was an extra level of management of avoiding the people and the gurneys and so on and so forth. I was never shy about talking about choroideremia, but there's no doubt people just thought I was the clumsy doctor, like running into the chair that's behind one of the computers, or heaven forbid the wet floor signs. They were the worst. It was like an obstacle course trying to get down a hallway sometimes. But you sort of, like everything else in life, you figure it out, right? You just figure out your system and you just sort of make it work.
Well, as we say, the CHM mantra, adjust and press on.
That's right.
That's exactly what we do. Now you're married and you have four. God, I was going to say little boys. They're not so little anymore.
No, I'm now I'm the third tallest male in my family now. So my oldest is 16. I've got a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 8-year-old now.
Gosh, Max is 16.
He's 16. He's driving. He's a junior. We're going on college tours, and yeah, time flies, Cory.
Wow, man. Geez, I should have him meet my granddaughter. She's 16. I'm just saying. She's cute. You'd like her. So now, outside of the kids and your work, and you enjoy music, and what kind of music do you get into mostly?
A little bit of everything. I mean, I think my wife and I tend to lean more towards rock, whether it's classic rock or more, modern alternative rock. But we love music. Neither of us, we don't sing, we don't play instruments, but live music is just such a great experience. It's a lot of fun, and so that's sort of become a thing of ours over the last several years of trying to get out to concerts. It's been a little hard over the last year and a half, like everything has been with COVID.
Yeah.
But trying to get out and hear live music, whether it's just going to a local bar and hearing a local band play, or going to see somebody at one of the larger venues in Philadelphia. So we're a little over the board, all over the place, and the kids have their own interests too. So we've tried to go bring them to a couple of things that they would be interested in. Maybe not my favorite music, but hey, it's not all about me these days. So yeah, that's sort of that's the plan. At least a few times a year, getting out to a big concert, and it's just a lot of fun. Like live music is it's just such a great experience.
It is, because it's not just the music; it's the show, quote unquote, the show. And how they interact with the audience and the type of show they put on. And it's like, I think back to like, some of the classics like Alice Cooper, who would just, put on these shows that were just mind blowing with stage effects and things like that. And it's just like, my gosh, it takes the music and just gives it that extra element. I think I love the energy of live shows.
Yeah, that's a big piece of it for me too. And it sort of humanizes the band members too, right? Like you hear them on the radio or you see them on television, but when you see them in concert and you see the way they interact with the crowd and the energy level and how they feed off of the cheering and the crowd singing, it's really kind of a neat experience. It's something you just don't get listening to it in your home, or like I said, watching something on TV. It's really a lot of fun.
And that's the fun part. And then your one other activity you enjoy that isn't so much fun is being a Philly sports fan, which I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's been a cross I've borne for 45 years now. Yeah, not unfortunately, unlike you, we haven't had too many high points, not too many championships over the last few decades.
But. Yeah, although it's been a long time, but there was a time when the 76ers and the Flyers and the Phillies, they were all monster teams. And
yeah, you realize I was like 6 years old when that happened, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, so I kind of came in after that and saw kind of the downslide, as though those players aged. And then there were some real lean years for a while, but I've at least had the chance, I've had the chance to see the Phillies win a championship, and I've had the chance to see the Eagles win a championship, and they're my true love, I would say. That was really a neat, kind of crazy, wild ride a few years ago when they ended up winning the Super Bowl. And
that's the first in your lifetime, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yep. One of my first memories watching football, actually, as a little kid, was going to my grandparents' house, and I remember a game, which in retrospect now was the Super Bowl, where they lost to the Raiders. So it was early 80s, maybe like 83 or 84. But I remember going to this game, and I remember it being really important because, my uncles were all excited, my dad and my grandfather, and I remember them stinking up the joint. That's all I remember. I don't remember the plays, I don't remember the players, but I remember it being really important, and we got killed. Yeah, that's like my earliest football memory.
As a Red Sox fan, I can really appreciate lean years.
Oh yes, you can.
I talk to kids now, teenagers that are, friends of my grandkids, or, and even my son, he's 30. And I tell him, you don't understand. I went to my first Red Sox game in 1971, and I was a fan before that. And I went from, so call it late 60s to 2004 without seeing a championship.
Yep.
Yep. And there was
some real heartbreak mixed in there too. It wasn't just having like bad or average teams. There were some really good teams that just broke your heart too.
and more like ripped my heart out of my chest and held it up in front of my face.
Oh yeah, it's torture being a Red Sox fan. Now, like you said, the newer generation in the last 20 years doesn't get it because they've been great.
Yeah, they've gotten spoiled.
Yeah.
No, but oh well. Hey, what can you do? So so as we talk about CHM, we'll get away from sports before we both start crying.
Right. Don't even ask me about Ben Simmons, Cory. Don't even ask me about Ben Simmons. Okay,
we won't.
We're not going there tonight.
We won't. So now, how has CHM personally affected your life?
Well, like I said, I mean, it's had a really big impact on my career. Right? I mean, that's something that I think is fairly unique for me. And well, believe me, I would rather not be going blind. I mean, it has given me the opportunity to give back personally through the CRF. As you mentioned, being a board member, serving as the president. Doing fundraisers, going to meetings and conferences. I mean, there's been a lot of positives, I would say, that I've been able to make through CHM. Certainly it's been a challenge too, right? I mean, like all of us, I've lived through some tough periods, emotionally. As happy as I am to have been a practicing physician, I haven't practiced since 2013 because my eyesight deteriorated to the point that I was, really dangerous at that point, taking care of patients. And, fortunately nothing happened, but very well could have. And I was able to put a stop to my career, but that was really difficult. It was really hard. And I've had a couple of career changes since then. And, I still, as my vision progresses, more and more challenge working on a computer, more and more challenge with mobility, not being able to do the things that I used to be able to do. And while we all deal with that as we age, there's certainly an acceleration when your vision goes away of, simple things like being able to have a catch in the backyard with your kid or teach them how to hit a baseball or even be able to just, hop in the car and take one of them out to grab a burger or to go to a local baseball game or something. I can't do those things. And that's, that can be really tough. Be really tough to deal with sometimes. So, I've like, as you said earlier, you sort of learn to live and adapt and kind of feel like on a regular basis where I'm sort of resetting my expectations and, going through this cycle of getting really frustrated and then just having to come to grips with the fact that part of my life now has moved on. And it sucks, I'm sure you know what I mean. And I'm sure others out there that are listening to this may, probably have the same feeling. It's really hard, but it's part of just sort of moving on and learning to live with this disease. Yeah.
And unfortunately for you, like, one of my adjustments as the sight got worse and my wife and I kind of did the role, almost I guess you could call it a role reversal, where I became the Mr. Mom and she was the one out working full time. And, so I took over all the cooking duties and, then redesigned my kitchen to make it easier for me to do that. And, unfortunately for you, you can't take over the cooking duties because your wife won't let you, and
no way, not when she's home.
and with good reason, because she's a darn good cook. So, I miss coming down and visiting you guys.
Well, I'm perfectly happy leaving her with those duties because she's much better at it than me. I'm more practical and functional in how I cook. Like the food is prepared and it's edible, and that's kind of where it ends. But yeah, she's a great cook. But there's other things. I mean, my dad was my role model growing up, still is, quite frankly. And I wanted to be the father that he was for my brother and I, and doing the things that he did. And he did everything right. He fixed things around the house. He maintained the yard. He played baseball with us in the front yard and took us here and there. And it's just the things like that I just can't do. And having to, again, sort of come to grips with that and learn how to deal with that and have that be okay, and find the impact that you give to your children and the way you give back as a parent in different ways. It's a weird journey, and especially, as I'm sure like your friends aren't dealing with that journey, right? Like they're not having to deal with that too. So you're very much like trying sort it out on your own.
Yeah.
There's not really there's not a roadmap. So
unfortunately not. And we all have to, because, all of our situations are different. You just find different ways to be that role model for your kid,
yeah,
and be able to, show them how to be, a good person in life. And, it's been my experience with my kids. Cause, of course I never drove.
right.
And it's been my experience that it's, until at least they hit teenage years, they're great with just spending time.
Right.
Of course, when they hit the teenage years, that's, forget that, you can't even tell them to go to their room because that's where they want to be. So,
Oh, I know. It's more like, I need you out of your room.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not a hotel guest. Please come here and fill the dishwasher.
Your punishment is to sit in the living room and spend time with your parents.
That's right. It's torture. Yeah. No kidding, right?
So now, what other types of, we talked about adjusting and so now, adjustments for work and adjustments in life, and we can kind of group all this together into technologies that you use. What kind of stuff do you use to really make your life easier, and those around you, for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, let's start simple. For the first is people. I was always an independent guy, as I'm sure we all were, or at least tried to be in our early years, and probably far longer than we probably should have been. And I have to rely on those around me now much more than ever before, and I know that's going to continue progressing. So I mean, I'm blessed to have family members that are it's just part of their life. My kids have grown up with dad being blind, so I don't have to ask for an arm. It just sort of shows up next to me. And that's really helpful. But, being in public places, or if I'm with friends, or, recently I had my first business trip with my company. I've, been with them a couple of years, and most of my work is remote, but had to travel and be in a business trip and be okay asking for help and getting help, and developing that comfort, relying on people has been really a big change and a big help. I use a mobility cane. I have for a few years, and I've gone from, having it be sort of intermittently used to, more or less it's a crutch that I use everywhere when I'm outside of the house, or outside of the neighborhood, let's say. So those are the big pieces. I'm not an Apple computer guy, but I use the iPhone, and so I've learned many of the accessibility features, and I don't need that many of them, but there's a lot of things that I do use, like trying to reduce contrast and glare. Screen inversion's a big one. Figuring out how to adjust font sizes. I use a little bit of speech to text, but those programs sometimes are a little shall we say, inaccurate. So I try to be a little bit careful when I'm using it and what I'm using them for. And then from a work standpoint, I've sort of navigated my way through figuring out the different levels of accessibility features within Microsoft programs primarily, and a little bit within Google. You sort of have to become your own specialist some ways, and leaning on some other people like you and like Eric and others who have done this before to learn some of those tricks and tips. And then my company supported me in getting Zoom Text, which, for those that aren't familiar, is an accessibility software that sits like an overlay on a computer, and can do a whole variety of things, many of which I don't use at this point, but it can do things like magnification and screen inversion, and the list goes beyond that, and it can go to the point of being even a screen reader.
The best thing for Zoom Text is that darn crosshairs.
Yeah, the crosshairs
help you find the cursor. Oh, that's
finding a cursor is torture. With my company, they the most of the people use the laptop that's provided and two monitors on top of it. I tried that for about a day, and I had to get rid of that. I was like, this is insane. I can't find this mouse. It's in it's in Nantucket. Like, I don't even know where the mouse is. So finding it on one screen is bad enough, but boy, oh boy, you get on multiple screens, it's impossible. So So yeah, those are the biggest mainstays. And then, the usual day-to-day living stuff of just trying to be organized and trying to keep a mental record of where everything is all the time, and being very practical about where you put things, and very intentional about, as much as possible, about the things you do in life, because otherwise you spend a heck of a lot of time on the back end trying to figure out where that thing is you put.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
It's like in my house, there is one specific place that the TV remotes can be.
Yeah, I wish I could say that.
And if you remove them from that spot, you're going to hear from me, because, as I explained to people, for you, it might take 5 seconds to find it. For me, it's going to take 20 minutes, and I'm going to be swearing at you the whole time.
Well, I'll tell you what I learned, because I've been through that, and the anger and frustration wasn't getting me anywhere. So all our smart TVs are mostly Alexa
Oh, okay.
or Amazon driven. So whether they have Alexa capabilities, or you can download the app on your phone. There's an Amazon Fire TV app, and so I can drive the TV and use my phone as a remote. So yeah, similar things, like finding ways to get around things, because I can't find the darn remote because it's tucked in the couch cushion somewhere for the 75th day in a row. Yeah, so you find your own ways of figuring out how to make it work. And then the kids look at you like, "Oh man, Dad, you can do it on your phone. That's great." Yeah, well, stop losing the remote, kids.
It's necessity.
Yeah, right.
I understand that. So now, like me, you've been to several conferences. Gosh, when did you come to your first conference? Was that 2008? I want to say
It was Baltimore.
Yeah, that was 2008. Yeah,
Was that
was
8?
the first one. Yeah, because I remember I met you, and it was funny. I'll never forget that. Karen and I were coming from someplace, but we stopped in Wilmington to visit the Kaufmans, and you and the family had recently become members of the CRF. And then I called you. This was like 06, 07, somewhere in there. And then you came over to the Coffins, and we met for the first time.
Yep.
Face to face. And I'll never forget it, Chris. Driving home, when we left there and we were continuing our drive home, I called up John Oster and I said, "I think I just met a future president of the CRF."
Oh, that's nice of you to say.
See that? I called it. Yeah, so 08 was your first conference. You've been to every one since then. So what do you enjoy most about the conferences? And really, what was your experience like that first one? What hit you with that?
Yeah, the first one was interesting because I didn't really know what to expect. My vision was obviously a much different place than it is now. I think you and I had met the year before. I think I had reached out the year before and had gotten involved and got on the board maybe the previous year. So that was my first time meeting board members. And so I was kind of taken aback, right? Like, I mean, I have family members with choroideremia, but I hadn't really been out in the world, meeting others. And I didn't know very many people. I knew you and, a couple of other board members through email, but so it was really an eye-opening experience. And, like I said, it was a lot to digest, but it was very motivating to see the opportunity, right? To be able to make a difference and the things that we could do as a group. And there's a lot of energy and a lot of excitement. So yeah, it was hard. I mean, and honestly, every one of these conferences in a different way, like it takes a couple of days to sort of digest and process it all, whether it's the information or just the emotional piece of it, like seeing those people that you haven't seen probably since the last conference 2 years ago, and the new people you meet and all the conversations. I remember it took a couple of days for me to sort of digest it all, but then it was, let's go. Like, we got things to do. Let's move. How do we make this happen? How do we set a fire under research? How do we grow the organization? How do we support people? And that's kind of where it all started for me.
To me, I so look forward to those conferences. What I do takes a lot of emotional energy, on a day-to-day basis. And those conferences are really they wipe me out. By the end of it, I'm dead, but that's what recharges my batteries every time. I come out of those conferences and I'm fired up every time. And that pushes me and it gives me enough to go to the next conference. So not having one in 2020 killed me.
Yeah, that was a real downer for so many reasons. But I'm right there with you. And I mean, it's like you said, it's a lot of work putting them all together. And you know, I've presented as part of them. I've sort of, what would you call them, narrator or MC? I don't know what
kind of like the MC, as the president.
Yeah, whatever you want to call them. I've sort of done that, and yeah, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time and energy, but they're so worth it. And if nothing else, then just to see people, right? We all live such kind of isolated existences when it comes to choroideremia. I mean, you know, certainly social media helps and email helps, and we try to keep in touch, but you know, just getting to go and see those people and put your hands on them and say hello, give people a hug and shake hands and get to meet new people and bring them into the family. You know, I'm sure you know this, like we're a big family. We all love and support each other, and you know, bringing new members of the family in every couple of years is a huge thing, because I know what those folks, and you do too, what they feel like that first time they come and they're thinking, oh my God, this is crazy. What am I walking into? And then they walk out and they walk away and think, wow, what an experience. This was so great. You know, the information is one thing, but just getting to know there's others out there, and that they're, you know, they're dealing with the same issues you are. They're having the same struggles and the same questions, and, you know, getting to be able to share in that a little bit is just, it's so powerful. And I love the conferences for that. I mean, it's a great experience. Yeah. I can't wait for us to get back to them.
So now, how do you feel, speaking of research, how do you feel about the way CHM research is, like, you know, we're kind of looking at, you know, where we were, where we are, where we're going. How do you feel about how things are going with the research?
You know, like the world of research goes, nothing goes as quickly as we would like it to. And, you know, obviously we've been pushing so hard over the years, and particularly, you know, gene therapy is a big focus, and it still is, right? And so, you know, we've been fortunate enough that we were able to get, you know, get clinical trials going. And I mean, to date, those clinical trials haven't been as successful as we would have hoped, but, you know, there's a lot of promise. There's a lot of promise in gene therapy. There's a lot of promise in other avenues, stem cell therapy or optogenetics. And, you know, there's opportunity out there. I mean, I would love for us to have a treatment right now and to be able to put an end to this disease. I mean, you know, for so many people, right, for all of us that have it, for the people that don't know they have it in the future. And sometimes it's hard getting there. You know, these are, you know, we think about research sometimes and it's almost like it's linear. Like we're going to start this project, and then eventually it's going to lead to a clinical trial, and then it's going to get approved, and then we're going to treat everybody, and then it's all over. But sometimes I think we lose sight that these are experiments, right? That's really what they are, and experiments. Some of them work, some of them don't. Some of them end up with different outcomes than you think they're going to have, and you know, I'm disappointed. I was hoping by now that we'd have a treatment, even if it's not a perfect treatment, that we'd have something, and it just hasn't happened yet. But I'm optimistic, and you know, we've as an organization been able to, you know, diversify so much of what we do into other areas of research, and connect with so many brilliant scientists around the world, that are doing different kinds of things. You know, again, I mentioned stem cells. I mean, connecting with people like David Gam, who are leaders in that field and are really leaders and advocates for us for choroideremia. There's a lot to be hopeful about. There really is. You know, so I'm very hopeful. You know, that I know we have clinical trials ongoing with 4D. There's a bunch of other irons in the fire. You know, I don't know when it's going to happen, and I don't know how it's going to happen, but we're going to find a treatment for this disease at some point. Like it's going to happen. It's just going to be difficult getting there, and that it has been to date, right? It's been 20 years, and we're still going, and we're going to keep going because we have to. We have to.
You know, I have that advantage of the long view, you know, with being at this now for 21 years. And you know, and it's funny, you talk to some of the younger guys, you know, the early 20s, you know, teenage CHMers, and you know, chafing at how slow everything is going. And I say, y'all don't understand, we have actually traveled almost at light speed in comparison to some other diseases
Yeah,
to
right.
get where we are. We went from 0 in 2000 to where we are now. That's pretty darn good. And it is a reason for optimism. We're not there yet. I've said for years, my goal is to put this organization out of business.
That's right.
I don't want there to be a need for a Choroideremia Research Foundation.
I'm right there with you, and I hope that's the case. And I'll tell you that the only way to make it happen is to continue doing the types of things that we do as an organization, which is keeping our ears to the ground, figuring out what the new breakthroughs are, and then going and engaging with people. And I mean, you've seen this going to conferences. It makes such a difference when you go meet a scientist in their realm and say, hey, this is my disease. I'm looking for a treatment. I'm looking for a way to get a treatment. And what you're doing sounds fascinating and sounds like it could help. There is no better way to get somebody on board than telling your story and personalizing this, right? I mean, this is very personal. And it becomes personal for the scientists. And you look at the people that we have worked with over the years, it's personal for these people. They don't just want to be successful because it's important to them as a scientist. They want to be successful because they care about us as people. And they want to make a difference for our community.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think back to, we have been, as an organization, so blessed to have a group of researchers around us that are just like that is personal for them. Dr. Bennett being one, and Dr. McGuire, Dr. MacDonald is another. For them, this fight's personal. There may not be a blood relation to anybody with CHM, but there's a relation. And, as part of my duties, of course, I answer a lot of questions from patients, and sometimes I have questions I get questions I can't answer. I don't know the answer. And the fact that I can fire off an email, to a Dr. Mack or a Dr. Bennett or, Dr. Panisi or, Dr. Lewis, any of these guys, and ask that question and have an answer for that patient within 24 hours. It's just incredible. I never, ever lose my appreciation for that.
But again, you're right. We have these incredible relationships, but the reason those relationships exist the way they do is not because they have a scientific interest in CHM or the genetic basis of the disease or the pathophysiology or the natural history. It's not all of that, right? It's the people. It's getting to know patients and their families and seeing the impact it has and really wanting to make a difference for them. And it's the way it is for rare disease everywhere, right? But the only way to do that is to get out there and again, get out there and meet people, talk to them. And so, we've been doing that for 2 decades. And my hope is that we'll be able to continue to do that. And as some of the elder statesmen in our group are tiring and retiring, that, we'll re-energize with some new members of the organization to start carrying the torch. Because that piece is really, it's really so important. It's really important. There's so many rare diseases out there, 7,000 of them, right? If you want someone to be interested in yours, they're not going to find you. You got to find them and put it in front of them, because there's too many, and they're all, all worthy causes, right? Every rare disease is a worthy cause. So
absolutely.
Anyhow, so I think it's been an interesting experience, volunteering and supporting CRF over the years, and I hope that we can keep the momentum up, because we've been able to do a lot of good things and move things along. And again, I'd love to be high-fiving people that we have treatments available and such, but we got to keep going and keep working at it, keep funding research, keep meeting scientists, and kind of keep moving the needle.
And I miss your wine tastings, by the way, if I'm officially saying this, even though I don't drink wine, but it's just always was always a fun time going to those. So
I miss them too. We haven't been able to have one for a couple of years, and I'm hopeful 2022 will bring different things. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'm planning on a dining in the dark next October. So just
Nice.
putting that bug in your ear. So
Nice.
y'all need to come up for one of those. We have fun with that. So
Yeah. Yeah. I won 1 year. I got to make it happen.
so now what as an entity, I mean, we've kind of touched on this a little bit anyways, but what has the CRF meant to you?
Yeah, the CRF is family. I know I used that word before, Cory, but they're family, right? These you all are people that that I've relied upon over the years, whether it's because I have a question, like I mentioned before, about how to change an accommodation setting on my computer, or whether it's just talking sports or shooting the breeze about something. I mean, it's been just a great experience to get to meet and to know everybody. And everybody that's with the organization is doing it for the same purpose, right? We all just want to help. We all just want to give back, and try to make the world a little bit of a better place, and support each other at its core. And that really means, it's meant a lot to me over the years, and it's helped me tremendously to get through periods where I have struggled, and I have, as we all have. I mean, I've had some some pretty difficult times in dealing with the loss of vision and its consequences. For me personally, it's meant a lot to give me a chance to give back. I mean, I talked about this before, but part of the reason I became a doctor is because I wanted to have the ability to make a difference in someone's life. And it's sort of a cheesy thing that the doctors say sometimes, but that's really important. And CRF has been able to give me the chance to do that too, over the years, and the variety of roles that I've worked in, whether it's trying to help with the website getting up and running, or running a fundraiser, or going to a conference and meeting with scientists, or our conference, and meeting new people and putting an arm around them and telling them, look, I get it, it's really hard, but it's going to be okay. Like that ability, that the opportunity to do that has been really, really, really a big part of my life. So I know I wouldn't be where I am today personally without CRF. Like it wouldn't be the same. And I mean, I've developed so many great relationships over the years with so many people, and I don't see you guys very much anymore, and probably don't talk to some of the folks that I should as much as I'd like to. But that's part of life right now, and just how busy family and such like that is at the moment. So anyway, I'll stop there. I'm kind of rambling.
But yeah, it truly is. I call it the CHM family for a reason. And I've had many conversations with the lead into the conferences. Of course, I talk to a lot of patients, and there's some that never been to a conference, and they're planning on coming to their first one, and they're always nervous about coming to their first conference. And I've always told them the same thing: you're coming to a family reunion, you just haven't met the family members yet. And every one of them has told me after the conference, you nailed it. That's exactly what I love the vibe of a CRF conference. It's science, and it's updates, and it's sessions on help to improve your life and things like that. But it's the family is what I think makes it special.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said before, and I know I'm repeating myself, but just the ability to sort of shake somebody's hand or put your arm around them and say, yeah, look, man, I've had the same problem, and I know, and it's tough, and here's how I get through it, right? Or to get that from somebody else, to have somebody else say, yeah, I struggle with that too, and you know what, like, it's okay, and here's how I manage. Like those pieces are so important, and they've been so helpful for me, and I know sometimes it's really hard to get there, right? It's hard to kind of get through wanting to talk about it and wanting to be open about it, but I'll tell you, it makes a huge difference when you do. It really does.
Yeah. Getting beyond your own personal barriers and just letting somebody else help. It's a big thing. So now what kind of on that line, what kind of, put yourself in the shoes, you're talking to a CHMer who's like 14, 15 years old. What kind of life advice do you want to give him?
I think the first thing is to live your life. CHM is part of my life, and it's a challenge. I don't view it as an obstacle. Certainly, like we talked about earlier, there are things that I don't do now that I used to do, and that's just the reality of it. But you have to sort of view it as like I said, as a challenge, and find ways to overcome, as opposed to an obstacle or a barrier. I'm not some of these crazy folks that climb mountains blind and whatnot, but there's people that do it, right? I mean, they do. I don't know how they do it. They're crazy, but they do it. And so the reality is that we put those barriers in front of us all the time. But if you want to make something happen and you want to accomplish something in life, you can figure out how to do it. So, are we going to be fighter pilots? No, right? We're not going to be that, right? But as you're thinking about what you want to do with your life with choroideremia, I would say, there are probably some things you need to be smart about, and some things you probably need to be realistic about in life. But you can make things happen if you want to, and look at life in the way of how do I get to where I want to be with this thing, this choroideremia, as a part of it, as opposed to saying, boy, well, I can't do all of that. All of that's out the window, and I got to figure out another way. And the other thing I would say is that life throws you curveballs all the time. And as I'm now in my 40s, and people's lives have changed. Like you talk to people all the time who've changed careers, changed gears, or doing things totally different. You learn that most people, go to college and they get a degree, and then they end up doing something totally different. That's not even, it's not in their degree, right? So things change all the time. And so choroideremia is going to change things for you as a person, but that's okay. You just need to be thoughtful about it and think about how you're going to problem solve around it, rather than look at it as this big wall or barrier that's put up in front of you and think, well, there's no way I can do this, and there's no way I can keep going this way. So I think we all deal with that a little bit, on a day-to-day basis, just little things that happen in our lives. But I think we also need to think about that in the big picture too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a wall, it's a speed bump.
It's true. I mean, people ask me all the time about becoming a physician, and particularly becoming an emergency physician. Like, why the heck didn't you become a psychiatrist or an internal medicine, like, family doctor or something like that? And probably wasn't the greatest decision for me. Like, there's a lot of hands-on stuff in emergency medicine that was going to make my career shorter than if I went into other careers where it was more cerebral. But when I wanted to do it, and I loved it. I loved every part of it, and I got to do it for fewer years than I wanted to, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. And when the time came, it sort of changed gears. I figured it out and moved on, and I'm making my career in a different way now, and continuing to move forward. And so that's the thing I think I would encourage people the most is, be willing to put yourself out there and be a little vulnerable, and work through it. And again, be a bit thoughtful about where you see yourself going, and not totally get yourself into a pigeonhole of something that's really just impossible. But to go ahead and try to do things and live your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Chris, I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. This was a lot of fun. It was good to catch up a little bit too. It has been way too long since we sat down and had a chat, especially a chat over a beer and, that kind of thing, which we need to do soon.
Yeah, I know. That's been a long time. But it's funny, those things, you don't realize how important they are until you miss them and you can't do them anymore, right? So
yeah. But what's funny, I found when everything came down, with COVID, and the watching the news stories and the way that people are just like going bonkers trying to, adjust their lives. And it seemed like for the most part, us CHMers were just like, okay, this is happening. Let's continue on. We'll figure out a way. It's like, and it's almost like being a CHMer kind of trained us for something like this.
It's like,
you know what I mean?
Oh, well, just another thing. All right.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, another thing to deal with. Okay. So we'll deal with it and keep going,
Just figure it out, put a mask on and figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was laughing at all the news stories. They were talking about these companies that were scrambling, trying to institute a virtual workforce.
Right.
And I'm kind of shrugging my shoulders going, gosh, we've been virtual for 20 years,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. I
know?
mean, I was fortunate. In 2019, when I changed jobs, I changed to a virtual role. So it really didn't change much for me. My commute was 20 feet from my bedroom, and before COVID, it still is now. So, but yeah, it's just amazing how much the world has changed in the last year and a half. And like you said, a lot of us were sort of used to it because that's what we were doing already.
Yeah. And we're used to having something in our lives that we have no control over,
Yep.
you know? So I think really that in a really weird way. So, yeah. Anyway, well, again, Chris, thank you again. And thank you everybody for watching this. And we hope to see you again soon at the next conference.
Absolutely, Corey. Well, again, thanks for asking me to do this. This was great. It was a lot of fun, and again, appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. We'll talk again soon.